quiet betrayal. The wind swept across the golden fields of Miller Farm. Please subscribe my channel A Story a Day, carrying with it the scent of soil, hay, and distant rain. For more than 40 years, that land had been John Miller's world, his reason to rise before dawn and rest after sunset. Every inch of it held a memory. His wife Mary laughing under the old oak tree, his young son chasing hens, the sound of his tractor echoing into quiet evenings. But now, as he lay in the sterile white hospital room, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above him, John's heart ached more for the fields than for his broken body. A sudden heart attack had brought him here, and though his body was healing, his spirit was restless. He missed the sound of the earth breathing. Ethan came to visit every evening. He would walk in wearing the same old jacket, smile awkwardly, and ask how his father was feeling. But these past few days, John noticed something different. Ethan's eyes were clouded, distracted. His words were brief, his visits shorter, and whenever Clara came along, her perfume entered the room before she did. Sharp, sweet and artificial, just like her smile. "Dad," Clara said one evening, setting a bouquet of lilies by the bed, "you need rest. Don't worry about the farm. Ethan and I are handling everything." John smiled faintly, though he felt uneasy. "Handling everything?" he asked softly. "You mean feeding the animals, fixing the fences, and keeping the accounts?" Clara's lips curved. "Something like that. But honestly," Ethan's been thinking, "maybe it's time we moved on from that old place. It's a lot of work." John's hands tightened around the blanket. "Moved on?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "That land is your heritage. Your mother and I, we built our lives there." Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her. "Dad, don't get upset. Clara just means maybe we should consider new opportunities. The farm isn't what it used to be. The market's down. The repairs cost too much." John looked at his son, the same boy who used to plant sunflowers beside him, whose small hands once clutched the same soil he now called burden. Clara touched Ethan's arm gently, pretending sympathy. "It's just a discussion. You need to rest, Dad. We'll talk about it later." But John knew better. Behind her honeyed words there was an intention, cold and sharp as a blade. Zhunya. Days passed. The hospital walls felt like a prison. The nurses were kind, the doctor optimistic, but John's thoughts never left the farm. He imagined the cows waiting for his voice, the crops whispering in the wind. On the 7th night, a nurse accidentally left the television on in his room. The local news channel droned softly in the background until a familiar phrase caught his ear. "Property sale in Green Valley farmland area." John's eyes widened. Green Valley, that was where his land stood. His heartbeat quickened as he listened closer. A smiling reporter mentioned, the buyer's interest in building a luxury retreat there. His breath caught in his throat. His farm? His being sold? He pressed the call button for the nurse, but she arrived too late to see his trembling hand reaching for the remote. His chest felt tight, his vision blurred. He managed to whisper, "Call Ethan," before the world went dark. Zhunya. When he opened his eyes again, the room was dim. Machines beeped softly. The doctor was checking his chart. "Welcome back, Mr. Miller," the doctor said kindly. "You fainted. You're stable now, but you must avoid stress." John nodded weakly, but his mind was already racing. They're selling the farm. Clara is behind it. And Ethan, his boy, was letting it happen. When Ethan came that evening, John watched him silently. His son's hands fidgeted, and his eyes avoided his father's. "Dad, you gave me power of attorney last month for the hospital bills, remember?" he began hesitantly. "Clara and I, we thought maybe it's best to sell the farm." John finished for him, his voice trembling but fierce. Ethan froze. "Dad, please understand. You're not well. The land is too much to handle now. Clara found a buyer who will pay enough for us to buy a new house in the city. We'll take care of you there." John cut him off sharply. "Take care of me? By destroying everything your mother and I built?" Clara stepped forward, feigning calm. Mr. Miller, we're just thinking about the future. Farming is dying. You should be proud Ethan is doing something smart for once. John's eyes flamed. Smart? To sell his bloodline for a few coins? His voice broke with anguish. That land is your mother's grave, Ethan. Every inch of it has her touch. You promised me you'd never sell. Clara rolled her eyes slightly. With all due respect, that promise doesn't pay bills. Ethan looked torn, caught between guilt and his wife's influence. He reached for his father's hand, but John pulled away. Silence filled the room, heavy as thunder. Leave me alone, John whispered. Both of you. Clara glanced at Ethan, whispering something under her breath before they left the room. The door shut softly, but to John it sounded like the closing of a coffin lid. Junior. That night, John couldn't sleep. His heart hurt not from illness but from betrayal. Memories flooded back. Ethan as a boy, running barefoot through the wheat fields, laughing as John chased him with a bucket of water. Mary waving from the porch, her apron fluttering in the wind. He could almost hear her voice now, gentle and steady. Protect what we built, John. Don't let greed destroy it. He whispered into the darkness. I failed you, Mary. The next morning, a nurse named Angela, who had grown fond of John, noticed his unease. You're thinking too much again, Mr. Miller, she said softly. John forced a smile. Thinking's all an old man can do when his legs won't take him home. Angela hesitated, then said, If you'd like, I can help you make a call. John looked up slowly. A call? She nodded. You've got friends in town, don't you? His mind sparked. Yes, there was Sam Peters, his old neighbor and friend, a man who had worked beside him for 20 years. If anyone could find out the truth, it was Sam. Junior. That afternoon, Angela helped him make the call. When Sam answered, his voice was gruff but warm. John, you old fool, I heard you were in the hospital. How are you holding up? Not well, Sam, John said quietly. Listen, I need your help. Go by my farm. Tell me what you see. There was silence for a moment. Then Sam's voice grew serious. John, are you sure? Yes, please tell me what they're doing. I'll go first thing tomorrow. Junior. The next day, Sam called back, and what he said made John's blood run cold. John, Sam said slowly, there's a sign out front. For sale. Miller Farm. They've already started showing it to buyers. City folks, fancy cars. Clara's talking to an agent. Ethan looks lost. John's breath caught. He closed his eyes, every muscle trembling. They didn't even wait, he whispered. While I'm lying here, they're selling my life. Sam's voice softened. Do you want me to stop them? No, John said after a long pause. Not yet. Let them think I'm too weak to fight. I'll watch quietly, and then I'll act. Junior. From that day forward, John became a silent observer. Through Sam's daily updates, he learned everything. How Clara sweet-talked the buyers. How Ethan signed papers he didn't understand. How she convinced him that selling would secure their future. She says she's pregnant, Sam mentioned one day. Told Ethan they need money for the baby. John's heart softened for a moment. A grandchild. But even that joy was tainted by deceit. She'll use that child to chain him, John murmured bitterly. Nurse Angela noticed the change in him. He smiled less, spoke little, but his eyes grew sharper. Colder. You're planning something, she said one evening. He didn't deny it. Just waiting, he said softly. Sometimes silence is the loudest way to fight. Junior. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hospital window, Clara and Ethan returned. Clara's face glowed with satisfaction. Good news, Dad, she said sweetly. The sale's almost finalized. You'll be free of all the burden soon. John's gaze was steady. And what will you buy with my burden? A new beginning, Clara replied. A life where Ethan doesn't have to dig dirt for pennies. John smiled faintly. A strange, cold smile that unsettled even her. A life built on betrayal never lasts, Clara. Remember that. She scoffed. We'll see. As they left, Ethan turned at the door, guilt flickering in his eyes. Dad, please forgive me. I'm doing this for our future. John looked at him with quiet sorrow. Gimnir. Your mother used to say the same thing when she planted seeds. Ethan, only she knew. You can't grow something good on poisoned soil. Junior. That night, as rain tapped softly on the hospital window, John whispered to himself. You may think you've won, Clara, but I'm not dead yet. His eyes gleamed with a spark of determination, the kind that once kept him plowing fields in storms and droughts alike. The old farmer was weak but not defeated. The plan had begun. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the world outside washed and silent. From his hospital bed, John stared out the window at the pale sky and whispered, "A good rain brings the truth up from the soil." Nurse Angela noticed the glint in his eyes. "You look stronger today," she said. "I am," John replied. "I have work to do." He no longer felt like a patient. He felt like a man reclaiming his will. His body was weak, but his mind was sharper than ever. A week later, the doctor announced that John could go home within days if he continued improving. That was all he needed to hear. He called Sam once more. "Sam," he said quietly, "I'll be out soon. Keep watching them. Don't say a word to Ethan or Clara." "You got it," Sam replied. "The agent's coming back Friday. Looks like they're ready to sign." "Then Friday will be their last surprise," John said, his voice steady, almost cold. The return. When Friday morning came, a light fog hung over Green Valley. The fields were damp, the sky gray, and Clara stood in front of the farmhouse wearing a crisp beige coat, holding a folder of documents. Ethan was beside her, pale and uncertain. "Don't look so nervous," Clara whispered. "It's just business." Ethan nodded, though his stomach churned. "It doesn't feel right, Clara. Dad would never forgive me." "He'll understand," she replied briskly. "You said it yourself. He's tired. He needs peace, not muddy boots." The buyers' cars arrived soon after, shiny sedans that didn't belong on dirt roads. The agent stepped out, cheerful and confident. "Morning, Mrs. Miller. Everything ready?" "Almost," Clara said, flashing her polished smile. "Just waiting for my husband to sign." But as Ethan picked up the pen, a familiar voice drifted from behind them. "Not so fast, son." Everyone turned. There he was. John Miller, frail but standing tall in his old denim jacket, his cane planted firmly in the earth. The wind tousled his silver hair, and though his face looked older, his eyes burned with quiet fire. "Dad," Ethan breathed. "You're supposed to be in the hospital." "I was," John said calmly, stepping forward. "But I heard my land was being sold while I was still breathing, so I thought I'd come home to attend my own funeral." Clara stiffened, clutching the folder tighter. "Mr. Miller, you shouldn't be walking. You're ill." John's gaze cut through her words. "I'm sick, not blind." He turned to Ethan. "Is it true? Are you selling Miller Farm?" Ethan's hands trembled. "Dad, please." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Clara said. John raised a hand. "Clara said," he echoed. "Yes, I've heard that line before." He looked at the agent and the buyers. "This sale is illegal. I never gave permission." The agent blinked. "But your son has power of attorney," "which was signed only for my medical care," John interrupted. "Not to sell my property. Check the papers if you don't believe me." The buyers exchanged uneasy glances. The agent flipped through the documents, frowning. "He's right," she murmured. "This doesn't authorize a sale." Clara's face paled. "That can't be. You said—" Ethan looked at her in shock. "You told me Dad approved everything." Clara's mask cracked. I thought he did. He said he trusted us." "No," John said quietly. "I trusted you to stand beside my son, not against him. And I trusted Ethan to have a spine. Seems both of you misplaced something." The silence that followed was heavy. The buyers mumbled apologies and hurried to their cars, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. The agent followed, muttering about miscommunication. When the last car disappeared down the road, Clara turned on John. "You've ruined everything. We could have had a new life, a better future." John's voice was low but steady. "A future built on deceit is a curse. Clara, you don't build better lives by destroying roots." Ethan dropped the folder and ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Dad. I was confused. I thought I was doing what's right." John looked at his son for a long moment. "You're not a bad man, Ethan. Just a blind one. But blindness can be cured. If you open your eyes." Clara crossed her arms. "Can you? You're both fools. You'll die out here with your old traditions and broken tractors." John smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I'd rather die honest than live as a coward." She glared at him, her face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this. I already regret letting you through that door," he replied. The breaking point. That night, the farmhouse was silent. Ethan sat alone in the living room, staring at the photographs on the wall, his mother smiling, his father holding him as a child. Guilt burned inside him. When John entered, leaning on his cane, Ethan couldn't meet his eyes. "Dad," he whispered, "I failed you." John sat beside him slowly. "No, son. You failed yourself, but there's still time to fix it." Ethan's voice cracked. "She said she was pregnant, that we needed the money for the baby." John's eyes softened. "If that child is truly yours, then he deserves a father with courage, a man who stands by his word." Ethan nodded, tears welling. "I'll make it right. I promise." John put a trembling hand on his shoulder. "Then start tomorrow. Work the field, feed the animals, earn back the trust you lost. Not with words, but with your hands." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm had returned, but this time John didn't fear it. Junior, Clara's fall. Days turned into weeks. Clara grew distant, furious and restless. She spent her time in town, talking to people John didn't trust. Ethan tried to reach her, but she pushed him away. Wadanana, the quiet betrayal. Over the next few months, the farm began to golden fields of Miller Farm. The animals grew stronger. Please subscribe my channel, EmotionalStory Day, carrying with it every day from sunrise to sunset. And distant rain shirt from soil black under his fingernails. That land had been John Miller's world. Painted his reason to rise before replanted the fields that had been left to die. Every inch John watched from the porch, sometimes his wife Mary, sometimes laughing under the old oak tree. He was proud. His young son, not because the land was being saved, the sound of his tractor echoing into quiet evenings. Sam often dropped by, now as he lay in the tools like hospital room. "You've got your boy back," the ceiling said one evening, spinning slowly. John nodded. John's heart ached. "I think I've got my peace too, than for his broken body." Junior. The sudden heart attack. One morning, a letter arrived for him. Though his body was healing, the spirit was restless, was familiar. The sound of the earth Clara's. Ethan came to visit every evening. Opened it slowly. He would walk in wearing each word with a heavy heart, smile awkwardly, and ask how his father was feeling. It had been a lie. But these past few days, manipulation. John noticed something different. She had left for the city. Ethan's eyes were chasing a life she thought she wanted. His words were "You'll hate me," she wrote. His visits shorter. "But someday, whenever Clara came along, you who the perfume entered the room before she folded the letter quietly and handed it to his artificial. John read like her smile, then placed it in the fireplace without one evening, setting a bouquet of lilies blackened into ash. "You need rest. She's gone." Ethan said off the farm. Ethan and I are handling everything. Then let the land heal her memory. Though he felt uneasy. "The final handling everything?" Months later, under the bright gold. "You mean feeding the animals? The fixing the fence hole and keeping the accounts?" Ethan drove the old Clara's lips curved. His face streaked something like that. Pride. But honestly, sat beneath the oak tree, watching him with a contented smile from that old same tree where Mary once stood, waving, and the wings tightened around the blanket to the breeze. "Moved on, Mary?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "That land is your heritage. Ethan, your mother and I, we built holding a handful of ripe wheat." Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her. He said, grinning, "Dad, don't get upset. The soil's still good. Clara just means it just needed care. Maybe we should consider new grains in his hand and close his eyes. The farm isn't what it used to be. Just like the market's down. The roots never cost too much. Only the faith John looked at his son. They stood there together. The same boy who used to plant sunflowers beside him, the horizon, whose small hands once clutched the same wind was gentle. He now the land alive. Clara, for the first time in years, John felt whole, pretending sympathy. He had lost much. It's just a discussion. His wife, his need to rest, Dad. Even his trust. We'll talk about it later. But in the ashes of betrayal, knew better. Something behind her honeyed words, there was an intention. Forgiveness. Cold and quiet strength of love that endures. Junior. Days passed. Epilogue. The hospital months later felt like John sat on the porch with a blanket over his knees. The doctor optimistic, plow the fields. But John's thoughts, a small wooden sign now hung by the gate. He imagined the cows waiting for his voice, grown since the crops whispering in the wind. He smiled at it every morning. The 7th night, Angela, a nurse accidentally left the television on in his room once. The local "You ever regret not selling?" softly in the background, chuckled softly until a familiar phrase caught his ear. He looked out. Property sale in Green Valley farmland. "You can't sell what owns your son." Eyes widened. The sun dipped Green low, Valley, touching the wheat. That was where his land stood. The earth was his heart beat quick, but alive as he listened closer. Just like the old man who refused to let it die. And somewhere in the wind he could still hear Mary's voice whispering, "You kept your promise, John.